From the people who brought you Anything Nice to Say Bewitched and Anything Nice to Say Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace comes an intro that will make sense later in the video. That's how you get ants.
Because that's how you get ants.
I've talked about reboots already on this channel. Coincidentally, or maybe not, the first reboot, as defined by a property being reimagined and ignoring continuity of the original, was 1984's The Return of Godzilla. Why is that coincidental? Because today we're talking about 1998's Godzilla. I'm going to step up on this at the beginning and say I really like this movie. Like, if I didn't know what to watch and this popped up as a suggestion on a streaming platform, Netflix, then I would take the time out of my life to choose to watch this movie and enjoy myself, even if I'm not trying to write a script for an internet commentary show that struggles to make the magic 10-minute mark. In the 90s, you couldn't get much nerdier than Matthew Broderick. I mean, there were plenty of nerdy actors and actors who typically portrayed nerds, but ever since War Games, Broderick has been top nerd. I know what you're thinking. What about Ferris Bueller's Day Off? He's the cool kid in that. Is he? I mean, he skips school and makes life difficult for the man, but all he does is go to a baseball game and an art museum. Like, imagine if the kids from Grease skipped school. At least one of them would probably have died in a tragic car accident with alcohol involved, and that was set in, like, what, the 50s? What were we talking about? Oh, right, 1998 Godzilla. The opening credits are a fun start. It shows nuclear bomb tests and lizards. Is that even foreshadowing? I mean, it's more like this will obviously be important later in. This version of Godzilla was written by Roland Emmerich, the man who brought us Stargate, Independence Day, The Day After Tomorrow, 2012. Some of you may know this chosen genre as disaster porn. But what I'm really trying to get at here is that while the Godzilla of 1998 might not be a great Godzilla movie, it's definitely a Roland Emmerich movie, and not a bad one. Here are some helpful tips for those of you who want to create a Roland Emmerich movie in your own home. First, you need a slow, ominous buildup of the antagonist. Bonus points if you don't actually get a clear visual of the bad guy. There are so many cool ominous builds in this movie. Godzilla attacks a Japanese fishing boat. He leaves footprints behind as he crosses over land near the Panama Canal. He drags 3 fishing trawlers underwater by their nets. Godzilla starts walking through New York, and even then we only get glimpses to start to judge how big he is. This is such a fun part of the movie, creating a tension for when Godzilla really starts breaking things. Now, the next part of Create Your Own Emmerich is to sprinkle in moments of character development to break up that ominous buildup. Nick Totopoulos is picked up by the military in the exclusion zone of Chernobyl, where he's studying the effects of radiation on earthworms. They introduce a running gag here where people mispronounce his name. It's funny.
Dr. Nico Tapopoulos.
Dr. Nick Papadopoulos.
How did Mrs. Tadopoulos handle that?
Dr. Nico Papadopoulos? It's Totopoulos.
It's Totopoulos.
It's Totopoulos. It's Totopoulos.
We're introduced to his former love interest Audrey at her job as an assistant to an egotistical news anchor. This is part of the Emmerich mix. Make sure that your main characters used to be together or have a history to get the love story angle in there. A cool quirk of Godzilla is that a bunch of voice actors from The Simpsons are in the movie, like Hank Azaria and Harry Shearer. Nancy Cartwright has a cameo as a receptionist.
How about a real story?
Sir, I think your story just walked by the window.
If anyone can figure out why so many people from The Simpsons were in this film, drop it in the comments below. All Emmerich movies need some groaners for comic relief, be it a joke at the expense of the French or some kind of witty one-liner like, we're going to need bigger guns.
We need bigger guns.
Don't forget government involvement. You need to show that the military is outmatched, but that doesn't necessarily make them incompetent. The main man on the ground in Godzilla for the US military is Sergeant O'Neill, who I assume is a callback to another Emmerich film, Stargate. O'Neill is one of the greatest characters of the movie. He's competent, in over his head, but still good at his job. I love when a side character does the right thing, even when he or she isn't the hero, and it looks like Emmerich does too. Every Emmerich movie requires the destruction of at least one major city, and, perhaps most crucial, don't forget the scientist who minored in exposition. There you have your Emmerich film. There are so many parts of '98 Godzilla to like, if not love. He's using the buildings and subway system to hide. Jean Reno.
What did you see, old man?
Jean Reno's Elvis impersonation.
Oh, thank you very much.
The climax where they figure out they can use the Madison Square Garden equipment to broadcast. The part where Godzilla bursts up through the concrete and we get the first close-up of his head. Jean Reno.
Oh, you got this coffee?
The argument about which streets to take while they're trying to escape. Jean Reno.
Let's go!
Don't tell anyone, but before this I had never seen a Godzilla movie. All of this brings me back to my intro. When you're watching a trailer for something that starts with, "From the people who brought you X and Y," you should be looking for a movie that fits in with X and Y, not a movie that fits in with A and B. Other examples. 2016 Ghostbusters, which people are still on 4 years later, is a Paul Feig movie that fits in better with Bridesmaids, Spy, and The Heat, rather than the Ghostbusters franchise. Anything that brings in Joss Whedon will contain quippy characters with sharp witticisms, and usually the tragic death of your favorite character. I love you, Coulson.
I will remember you.
But expecting Whedon to fit Zack Snyder's style is ridiculous. And because we have to do things in threes, take a look at J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. It is literally how J.J. Abrams would tackle Star Trek. It ignores any Star Trek that came before it or after it, I guess because time travel.
1.21 gigawatts!
This isn't good or bad in and of itself. It's just how it is. What is Jurassic Park without Spielberg? What is the MCU without the guiding hand of Kevin Feige? How awesome is it that I get to mention Feig and Feige in the same sentence? If we could see into a parallel universe, maybe we would know. But until then, stay open-minded, thanks for joining me on Anything Nice to Say, and never be ashamed to like what you like. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell because, gosh darn it, people like you. If there are any movies you think are underappreciated that you want me to take a look at, hit me up in the comments or anywhere else on the internet, links in the description. You can also support this show by buying merch or subscribing to Patreon, and we would love you for it.